Hi, thank you for joining our third New York Times Learning Network webinar of 2019, Voice and Choice, Summer Reading with the New York Times. This webinar is presented in collaboration with the California State Library. My name is Tracy Keller. I'm focused on education marketing here at the Times, and now I will turn the mic over to Michael Goncher for some more exciting information.
All right, thank you so much, Tracy. We're excited to be here with all of you today. The Learning Network has been around since 1998. Our mission is to help people teach and learn with the New York Times. We promote news literacy and awareness, digital citizenship, and critical thinking. And as you'll find out more today, we provide engaging reading and writing opportunities for students every single day. We primarily serve teachers and librarians, and of course, young people, ages 13 to 19, though we actually know some of our resources are used at the elementary school level and also in college. All of our activities, including everything on the Learning Network we'll be discussing today, are free. And you can find us if you take a few minutes to look on the New York Times homepage. It might really take you a few minutes because we're hidden. Really an easier way to do it is just to use your favorite search engine, or the best way is to bookmark us, and then you can easily find the New York Times Learning Network. Our activities, we publish at least 5 new features every single school day during the year, and you can navigate to find them through these colorful widgets, these different categories. For example, in the multimedia tab, you can find our weekly What's Going On in This Picture and What's Going On in This Graph and Film Club series. In quizzes and crosswords, you can find our weekly news quiz, Country of the Week quiz, and Word of the Day quizzes. We'll be speaking about our writing prompts a little bit later and our contests in more detail, but I'll just mention right now that we actually run 9 contests during the year, ranging from our poetry and podcast contests, which are going on right now in April, and our 15-second vocabulary video and editorial cartoon contests. At the heart of our philosophy at the New York Times Learning Network and at the heart of our summer reading program is the idea that we want to empower teenagers. We value their voices, we honor their opinions, and so that's why we named this webinar Voice and Choice. That's what we'll be discussing today as we talk about summer reading. We're excited to have a bunch of different guests. We've got editors from here at the New York Times Learning Network, as well as a teacher and librarian. And we're going to talk about how these 2 principles, voice and choice, can help get students reading throughout the year and the summer. And now I'm excited to introduce Catherine Schulten, who is a longtime editor of the New York Times Learning Network and actually a creator of our summer reading contest, which is now in its 10th year. So Catherine, welcome.
Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm loving the chat box. And this is our biggest librarian audience ever, I think. So librarians, I hope this feels relevant to you. And as I said in the chat, I hope this is really just the beginning of the conversation between us. We would love to engage more librarians. So I feel like the preacher preaching to the choir on the next few slides, but we need to have them. I believe that anybody who's listening in right now already buys the need for independent reading. But if you have to convince an administrator, say, of the efficacy of doing it in the summer, maybe the next couple of slides I'm going to show will help you. Independent reading is also known as leisure reading, recreational reading, pleasure reading, free voluntary reading. And the basic definition is that it's independent, self-selected reading of a continuous text for a wide range of personal and social purposes. And a recent joint statement by 3 pretty good authorities, that would be the International Reading Association, the Canadian Children's Book Center, and the National Council of Teachers of English, all agree about the need for independent reading. And they have this is one sweet slide that really sums up every bit of research. And I think if you're a librarian or a teacher, you know this anecdotally already, but it shows that leisure reading enhances kids' reading comprehension, language, vocabulary development, general knowledge, and empathy for others, as well as self-confidence as readers, motivation to read throughout their lives, and positive attitudes towards reading. So not that you didn't already know that, but there it is with all the reference points if you need to tell anyone. The 3 organizations I mentioned before have 2 big guiding recommendations when you're trying to structure summer reading, whether it's through your library or in your classroom, whether it's on class time or out of school. And I'm going to show you those, but I want you to also please notice the art that I'm going to use in the next 4 slides and give mental props to the New York Times Book Review every summer they have a whole summer reading special issue, and I just hoard these images. These are from the last decade, and I just pull them out and use them for various things like this. So the two recommendations, the first one is so logical you hardly even need to say it. Principle one, readers should choose their own reading material. I don't really know why you would call it independent reading if somebody was just handing you what they expected you to read, but there you go. Principle two, a little less obvious maybe. The benefits to students' fluency, comprehension, and motivation from engaging in leisure reading are increased when teachers scaffold school-based leisure reading by incorporating reflection, response, and sharing in a wide range of ways that are not evaluated. So incorporating reflection, response, and sharing. I want to say that our summer reading program does both of those things. And what they're really saying, in other words, is give kids choice and give kids voice. So I want to talk a little about our summer reading contest, but I also want to say, even if you weren't participating in it, what I'm about to say goes for much of what we do on our site in general. But our summer reading contest, I think, is pretty uniquely easy to weave into anything you've already established. So even if you already have text or a theme picked out for the summer, I hope that you'll see in the next couple of slides just how easy it is to add this in. So I have a little animation going here. I hope it's working, that you just saw the summer reading contest this year. This is our 10th year, and it's run the same way for 10 years. It's pretty simple. 10 weeks every summer. This year, June 14 to August 23rd. Any teenager in the US, the UK, or Canada, so anyone 13 to 19 years old, can participate any week or every week. I'm not going to get into the details of kids from elsewhere in the world, but those are on our website, and it has to do, in simple summary, with the EU changing privacy rules. So that wasn't on the Times. We were forced to change it. But we welcome teenagers from all over the world, and there's fairly easy ways to have us do that. It works the same way every week. On Fridays, we post the question and put it high on the top of our site, all over. You can't miss it. We ask kids, what interested you most in the Times this week and why? Those two simple questions. Kids have a week to answer. They can choose from any Times article or essay, as you might expect, but they can also pick videos, infographics, podcasts, or photographs. So it can also be visual stuff. And anything published in 2019 is fair game, and that's literally leaves you with, hundreds of thousands of choices at this point in the school year, or in the calendar year. A really fun new thing we've done for the last 5 years maybe now is that we know that a lot of teachers come to us because when kids write for us, it's really writing for an authentic audience, in the sense that our staff of 4, all former school teachers, read every single thing they publish. Well, the summer reading contest goes beyond us. Every summer we ask volunteers from the newsroom, so Times journalists, if they'd like to participate, and every week they help judge. So your students or your patrons in your library who come in, if they participate in our contest, they know that they'll have somebody reading it who's a Times editor or journalist. Oh, excuse me. And remember, you can do it any week or every week, so it's not a big commitment. You could try it once, or you could, maybe you like it, you come back. So one thing we want to make really clear is that when kids think about newspapers, we know that they kind of think about front page news, right? They think about the Trump administration, or like a skirmish in Congress, or maybe like international terrorism, or some big front page heavy news that's everywhere. We absolutely do not care what students pick. And I hope the rest of this webinar kind of proves that, because we're going to show you some of the winners, talk about topics they've picked, et cetera. But part of why we do that is that we really believe that the Times has something for everybody, and that there are as many ways to read the Times as there are Times readers. So what I find that interests me isn't what's going to interest you. So kids can pick politics. They could pick this article about pythons, or they can head right to the cooking section and just concentrate on pasta. We really do not care. We want kids to wander. We want them to realize that their interests and their lives are reflected in the local newspaper, but also in the New York Times and in newspapers in general. And we also know from research on independent reading that that's how you build a reading habit, is just letting people pick up and read what they want, discard what they don't, etc. So in the summer of 2018, well, maybe you recognize this illustration, but the summer of 2018 was the summer of Fortnite. 2018 was the year of Fortnite. We heard about it endlessly on our site when kids would write in all year long. And in the summer, I guess they stopped playing Fortnite long enough to read a Times article about Fortnite and write about Fortnite, because we got a lot of entries about it. Of course, there was tons of front page news that a lot of kids grappled with over the summer. The migration crisis at the Mexican border was on the front page constantly. The Catholic Church sexual abuse scandal. If you remember, 3D guns were all in the news last summer. So kids, obviously, we usually hear from about 10 to 15,000, somewhere in there, every summer. And many of those kids are dealing with very serious subjects and really grappling with understanding them. But just so you can see the range, they are dealing with all kinds of stuff. It could be they're writing about new emojis, or LeBron James, or Crazy Rich Asians was out last summer, and a lot of kids loved it and wanted to write about it. Video game addiction, all kinds of things. So let me see. Yes. So I am going to actually now introduce you to somebody who teaches with this contest, and she can talk about how her students have used the New York Times. And that person is Karen Gold, who's the English department chair at the Governor's Academy in Massachusetts, which is a boarding school. And Karen, are you with us?
I sure am. Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, I'd love to talk about how we piloted the program in our department last year, but now we're going full force this summer because it was so successful. So there were three of us who all taught juniors, so 11th graders, and we thought we would give it a shot. And again, as I said, we loved it so much that now all of our juniors are going to participate. We're going to ask them to do just as you outlined. I'm going to echo some of the things you said, to choose an article that really is interesting to them, and then to keep track of what they're reading and what they're writing, and through a Google Doc. And so they're going to share that with their teacher when they come back in September. So I'm already planning for my first day, but in September I'll ask them to talk about an article or two that they found particularly engaging or interesting, and share their comments. It's a great first day of school activity, and for me as a teacher, it's a great way to get to know where my students' interests and where their choices were this summer. I'm a big proponent of choice in reading with teenagers. And the contest, as you said, allows the kids to read articles that really interest and engage them. We saw such a wide variety of interests. Many of our kids followed the story of the soccer team in Thailand that was trapped in the cave. That was really compelling to them. Others followed stories about the separated migrant families, trade talks, lots of food, lots of art, sports, which really proved there really was something for everyone. It was really fun to see what they selected. Some of my colleagues initially were like, really? Are we going to make them do this? Are they going to do it? What's the pedagogical perspective of and benefits of this? So the first is, of course, it keeps them reading, and keeps them reading in things that are really interesting to them, and then also, as you said, provides them a voice. My students also told us that it broadened their worldview a little bit. It keeps them up to date, but they thought it was cool that it exposes them to other students from other parts of the world. They all noticed that many of the readers' comments last summer were from definitely other parts of the country, but also other parts of the world. And this broadened their perspective. And in a way, as a teacher, I loved that it created a community of readers and writers. There was this sense of a different type of classroom outside of how they traditionally see the classroom. So that was a lot of fun. As an English teacher, I love the readers' comments part of this. We're always trying to get our students to write concisely and clearly. And so they're able to write to an audience other than their mean old English teacher, right? And so having that that audience is great for them. And in fact, my experience was that they do write carefully and concisely, and they love it when their comment is published in the New York Times, and they can show their parents and their aunts and uncles, look, I was published in the Times. That was a big factor to see their name and where they were writing from. From a pedagogical point of view, we really find that it builds vocabulary, critical reading skills, that concise and clear writing. I found as a high school teacher that the Times is at an appropriately challenging reading level for them. In a time when parents and kids are spending a lot of time and money on SAT and ACT practice and tutorials, I always make the argument that reading the Times is their best practice. Um, I collaborated a lot with the librarians, my favorite people, and they gave great feedback. One of our graduation requirements for our students here is that they have to write an extensive junior history thesis paper. The summer reading contest gave them a lot of practice, providing them with the opportunity to read nonfiction. When they read the Times opinion pieces, they're learning to build an argument that's succinct and compelling and persuasive. Another thing one of our librarians noticed is that as the kids learn to navigate through the New York Times, finding something that's interesting to them, this transferred to them doing their research for their history paper. This transfers to navigating through databases that just made it much easier for them. One of my favorite moments was in a parent-teacher conference where a parent said he actually wanted to talk about the article he read that day. And another student shared that it elevated her dinner conversation and became almost multi-generational, and that every week when she had dinner with her grandparents, they were able to talk about what they read. So that was a really feel-good thing, and certainly something that connected multi-generations. But ultimately, what we found is that the summer reading contest led to kids finding topics that interested them. And then they wanted to learn more about it. And they went down that rabbit hole we all do by actually reading more. So I found kids of all different abilities enjoyed it, they did it, and we're definitely going to do it again, and we're looking forward to it.
Karen, do you want to, I don't know if you can see the slides, but Karen and I spoke on the phone, which, by the way, you just went so far above and beyond with the benefits. In no way am I feeding her lines. This is, she's just perfect for this webinar. But Karen did a little experiment this month with her students to see, since these particular students haven't done the contest, she just took that day's Times and said, what's in there that's interesting to you? And I have those on the slide. Can you see those, Karen? Would you want to talk through them
I
just
sure can,
quickly?
yeah. It was a really fun exercise. I said, if you could read anything today, so I probably should back up and say our school does provide a subscription to the Times. Our librarians are my rock stars, and they have coordinated all of that. So all the faculty, staff, and students have access to the school subscription program. So yay for that. So they were able to go online and look at the Times that day. And I said, pick any article that you're going to read for the first 10 minutes of class. And it was everything, as you can see, from Tiger Woods to global warming, to Trump can't blame Mexico for our drug problem, making babies in the year 2045, in a poor Kenyan community, are you my husband? It was really fun even for them to just be able to see the variety of topics, from sports to international relations to economics. It was really, really a great moment with them.
Yeah, that's great. And that the one that most of your kids picked, I remember you telling me, is the Making Babies in the Year 2045, which was true sci-fi, and that's what that little illustration comes from. So you made me real. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Karen. You made me realize that we haven't yet said a key thing. If you don't have a Times subscription, no problem. For this contest and for everything else we do that is student directed, it is free from our site. Now, that doesn't mean that you can just start clicking around in the New York Times and it's all free. It means you have to come from our site. But the contest each week is free. Commenting on the contest, entering the contest is free. And we put a bunch of links every week when we say, what interested you most in the Times? We put a whole bunch of stuff that kids can click on because they then have free access to those articles. So they have at least 25 or so things to choose from each week if they don't have a Times subscription. So just so you understand that our part, the student-facing part of our site is free. Now, we've been talking at you guys a lot, and I want to now ask you to use the chat box to do something for us. Maybe you're not a Times reader, and no problem. You can interpret this to be about your own local paper. But what's your favorite section or feature of the Times or of your local paper? Tell us in the chat box and tell us why, and then we'll respond as you do. Chat box is dead. Hello? All right, I'm going to have to ask my colleagues here. Natalie, favorite section of the Times. Natalie Prue is an editor on our site. Oh, now I'm hearing from you. All right.
That book review, Smarter Living, people are writing. I was going to say Sunday Review. I always go to that on the weekends.
Yep. Jeremy, he's also on our team.
Well, I'm biased, of course, sports section.
Yeah, somebody had to say it though. Food. I'm glad people know all about the Smarter Living, which is the most news you can use section ever. It's just straight up tips on making your life better.
We have world
now
news,
you guys have
science, the book review, comics, crossword.
Nice. The science section. Shout out to
magazine.
Science. All right, fantastic. And using the Times for credible current research. God bless. Wirecutter, yes, I have a few. I don't have a Wirecutter slide in here.
Climate.
But Wirecutter is something the Times acquired that's product recommendations, if people don't know, and that's absolutely legit for this contest. If you want to look at which earphones to get and you want to write about it for our contest, that's great. Health and fitness, Patty, thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Darshna, health and food. So your kids are just like you, right? You're all going to have favorites. And our goal here is that you'll start wandering in the Times and you'll come across stuff you never knew existed, and it'll be wonderful. And life, just as Karen spoke about, you'll expand your horizons. But everybody starts with their own interests, and that's perfectly fine. We want to show you one section that you may not know about. You probably don't. It's from our little corner of the world on the Learning Network. And it is also free because it's another student-facing feature we offer. And that's something we call Teenagers in the Times. Every single month for years now, we've gone to the trouble of rounding up every single article about teenagers that the Times publishes. Not every single one, but the main ones. And there's probably 50 links per month, including, here's one from December, about a girl in Mongolia, and this is her eagle hunting partner. So some of these get pretty far afield. I mean, others are about, young sports, young athletes or kids on Broadway or dancers or whatever, but sometimes you get Mongolian eagle hunters as well. So that's legit. Kids can pick from any of those. Now I want to get to a question that I know a lot of you are asking in your head, which is, yes, but the Times is a difficult text. Karen spoke about it being at a perfect level for her students. That may not be true for your students or for the patrons in your library, and we understand that. Can they still participate even if the Times would be a difficult read? The answer is yes, and that is because there is so much multimedia in the New York Times now. So completely legitimate are our daily videos. They're around things like breaking news, like Joe Biden and the whole Boeing crisis. There are also science videos, including short videos about weird animal phenomenon. There's something in the arts section called Anatomy of a Scene that's about, it takes a currently popular movie and the director walks you through one scene and explains how they got the shots. T Magazine has ridiculous stuff like this man up in the upper right-hand corner had something like, 30 minutes to make something out of a bunch of craft supplies and they videotaped it. Good times in the video section. So your kids can find something there. If you don't know the upshot, and I don't think anybody mentioned it in our chat, But this is daily charts and graphs, many of them interactive. And it's a whole separate section of the Times because we do so much data journalism now. And it's obviously going to be things like politics and front page news, opioid crisis or whatever. But there are also really fun graphs and charts that go right to kids' lives. For example, there was one about musical tastes across the country. What are the favorite bands and artists of different regions of the country? There was another, a dangerous one. Well, one I hesitate to tell you to look at because you'll be shocked, which is about how many calories you usually eat at Chipotle. So, they can dive deep into all kinds of data. So those are completely legitimate choices for kids to write about, as are photos. And every year we get kids who win by writing beautiful things about a photo they saw in the Times. And the photos, are all throughout the paper, obviously, but there's a whole photojournalism section of the paper called Lens that really will dive deep on certain sports or areas of the world or subcultures or whatever. And kids can use any of those photos. Finally, you may not realize that the Times now has many, many podcasts. You may know The Daily. It's always up at the top of iTunes, and that's the most popular one. And that's a deep dive in the day's news. So that's a really interesting backstory on whatever's happening on the front page. But there's also the Modern Love podcast, where famous actors and actresses read real people's essays about their love lives. So that's interesting. There's also one called Popcast that's just about pop music. Again, any of those are okay to use for our summer reading contest. And I hope you're realizing, too, whatever it is, your theme or book, there's so much stuff in the Times that could probably parallel it, and your kids will find that, too. So I want to turn it back over to Michael, because we are now going to move on to we've talked about choice, just how much choice is in the paper. Now we're going to talk about student voice.
One other thing, thank you, Catherine. One other thing I want to say about, Catherine was just speaking all these different features and sections of the New York Times, but back to this idea of if you don't have a subscription, you can not only find those 25 articles that we'll post in each week on our summer reading contest, but students can click around on the Learning Network. I saw that one participant mentioned that they love what's going on in this graph. So that's one of our features where we've now published dozens and dozens of different graphs from the Times, and we put it on the Learning Network. So we can find, students will be able to find lots of videos and even podcasts and graphs and images just right on the Learning Network as well. And if it's from this year, then it counts. So in talking about voice, I just want to say it's an integral part of our approach to empowering students to become readers, writers, and thinkers during the summer and throughout the year. Let me talk a little bit about what we do during the school year, which is that every day we ask teenagers to tell us what they think in our writing prompts. So we have two daily writing prompt choices. One is our image-driven picture prompts, and the other is our student opinion prompts, which you can see on your screen now. Each day we excerpt a New York Times article, and we ask students to think deeply about any number of different issues. For example, questions about family or friendship, social media, and school, or the big issues of the day, such as mandatory vaccinations, the Electoral College, or gun violence. And you can see on the screen some recent questions we asked about: is horse racing ethical? How should seniors spend their final year in high school? And would you want to be proposed to on a Jumbotron? If students want to participate in our student opinion questions, or our picture prompts, or our summer reading contest all summer long, what they'll need to do is take a few seconds to register on NewYorkTimes.com. It's free. As Catherine said, there are some age requirements that in the United States and Canada they'll have to be 13 years and older. And you can see on this slide that there's a little box that they should make sure it's checkmarked if they want to receive a confirmation email when their comment is published. A lot of teachers tell us that they ask their students to forward their confirmation emails to them so that they can keep track of if students are participating. Now, it's already been mentioned, I think Karen spoke about how not only are students, is the Learning Network a place where students can get their ideas published, but they can actually have a forum where they can exchange ideas with other students from around the world. So students can speak from California to North Carolina or Hong Kong to Maine. And what they can do is they can test their counter arguments, and they can push other students to cite their evidence. And once a week, what we do. It's actually Natalie who's sitting with us. She collects the comments with the rest of our team here, some of the best comments from around the Learning Network in our current events conversation, where we honor some of the best thinking and writing from the week. And this gives students a chance to see their name and writing in an article published on NewYorkTimes.com. It's essentially a continuation of our summer reading contest all summer long. So, Catherine, let me hand it back to you.
Okay. I want to, I'm trying to be in the chat box as well as talking, and that's a little complicated. Can you post our how to use our site in the chat box?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay. So I want to give you 3 examples of student voice from summer reading contest past. Now, kids have 250 words or so, right? That's very, very short, and some don't even write that much. So what you're about to see here are excerpts, but I want to show you the 3 most common ways that kids respond to summer reading, all of which we love and all of which we encourage. The first one, and maybe our favorite, is when kids make a connection to their real lives. They find something in the Times that really speaks to them. It either makes them mad or, you know, they can really relate, or they have some information to add and they tell us about it. So this first one was an opinion piece last summer that was about how everybody has an accent. It's just that we fetishize some of those accents and we disdain others. I'm quoting from the piece. And a girl wrote in, and this is part of what she said. As I grew up, I noticed smirks and giggles following my mother's speech. I remember seeing an online ad that offered courses to, quote, get rid of your Indian accent today, feel like a better American. Knowing that there were courses designed to help people get rid of their accent suddenly made my mom's pronunciation seem embarrassing. And she was our winner one week. She went on, you know, drawing conclusions about that. But you can see how it can get, sometimes it's quite personal what kids write. Another way of responding, and I put this one in purposely for the California people, is a few years ago when there was an article called, Why Is It So Hard to Get a Great Bagel in California? And that is kids just reacting to something they've read in the Times, that they have a strong emotional reaction. And this, you know, it's too bad I can't read you this whole one because it was funny, but this is what one way the girl started. This is how the world pictures San Francisco, a city of vegan-loving, gluten-free, high-maintenance maniacs. And now our bagels, still young and innocent, are being attacked. As a San Francisco high school student, I felt compelled to respond. And she was our winner one week. We loved what she had to say, and we love that kids want to talk about food reporting in the Times and call us out for it. So obviously we like it when they call us out for more serious things as well. It's part of media literacy for them to question what they read in the paper or say this isn't complete reporting, or this is skewed from my own experience. And, you know, we're thrilled when kids do that. So I think you can also hear, by the way, how voicey these are. We love when kids write in their own natural voice, when they're funny, when they kind of play with language, when they're really honest. A third kind of response is a kid who's just found something kind of wonderful or interesting in the Times that's added to what they understand about the world. And in this case, it was a space-obsessed kid who found this. It was a much emailed article because a lot of people were kind of taken by it, called The Rich Are Planning to Leave This Wretched Planet. And it was all about how if you have $55 million, you can go to space. So the kid began, I believe it was his essay, saying, what could possibly motivate somebody to wear a 180-pound suit with diapers and drink tubes, rotate senselessly in a centrifuge, induce claustrophobia, and risk death, all while coughing up $55 million in the process? The answer is right above us. It's space. And then he went on to kind of make fun of the rich people in the article, but talk about the wonders of space. And, you know, that's delightful to us. We just love to see what kids are going to surface in the paper and what they have to say about it. And, you know, it's our favorite. It's my personal favorite contest to judge because I just learned so much. We're moving quickly, and I'm changing the topic rather abruptly at the moment, but I want to say for the librarians listening that we haven't done a lot of library collaborations, but we have done one. In the last year, we've collaborated with little free libraries because, frankly, I met them at a conference and they're so delightful. And if everyone listening doesn't know, they're all over the world now. They're just little neighborhood libraries where people leave their books. They have developed something called an Action Book Club online, and Every semester it's a new theme. In the fall, the theme was Come Together. And it was books about creating community. And so what we did is pull about 50 Times articles from all over the place and from, stretching back maybe a decade that were like gems around this topic, including maps, including essays from the opinion section, including articles. And it was about coming together at work, at play, at school, in church, across political divides, across age and religious divides. And it was a very feel-good collection of articles. That's still online, of course, and as we keep explaining, free. All those articles are free because this was a student-facing collection that we made. I know that this summer, many libraries have a similar theme. There's something called the Collaborative Summer Library Program, and their 2019 theme is a universe of stories. Some libraries, like my own, the Brooklyn Public Library, seem to be interpreting that in a kind of metaphorical way. So it's not just about space, it's about all the different places reading can take you. But other libraries do seem to have a real STEM focus around it from my online research. If you were interpreting it in a STEM-focused way, the New York Times has an entire section on space and space travel, and space research reporting that's on everything from black holes to going to Mars. So certainly you could find an easy way to fit those two together. Michael's gonna go ahead.
Yeah, well, another theme that seems to be popular with libraries this summer is it's Showtime, about performance. And I know that many libraries actually in California are using that theme. And I just wanted to point out that on the Learning Network, so forget just the New York Times in general, but on the Learning Network, these are some of the pieces that we've recently published using Times articles about things like hobbies like hobby horse, what's that called? Hobby horse is a hobby. And we ask questions about, do we need more female superheroes, or do you love to dance? So we have lots of materials related to that theme. Let me introduce Candace Mack, who is the Administrator of Young Adult Services at the Los Angeles Public Library. I'm excited to have her on this webinar. And she's going to talk about how taking this idea of voice and choice to the next level, how the Los Angeles library system is empowering teenagers to choose issues that matter to them and then to use their voices and to take action to make a positive difference in their communities. So welcome, Candace.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Michael. Thank you so much. So Teens Leading Change is the name of an initiative that we started in fall 2017. It's the Los Angeles Public Library's Civic Engagement Initiative for teens age 14 to 19. Teens work with the young adult librarians at their neighborhood library to implement local direct action civic engagement projects, empowering youth to learn firsthand what they can do as individuals and collectively to address a civic need in their community, whether that's something that they see as an issue that they want to address, or something that is awesome in their community that they don't think has gotten enough attention. So in doing so, teens benefit from leadership and networking opportunities through the program, increase their awareness and understanding of the issues they are addressing, and become civically engaged members of their communities. So yes, mini grants of $100 to $5,000 are given to teen volunteers / teen council members on their projects related to one of the 5 topics that are listed on the slide, although we also accept other as a category. An application form was developed by our Teens Leading Change Committee, which was staff from our Youth Services Department, as well as staff from our Library Foundation of Los Angeles, which is our fundraising arm and funds the mini grants. So once approved to do a project, each project has 3 often overlapping components: a research component, an implementation component, and also sharing out. So one of the projects is called Be Craft Savvy, and that they focused on media literacy, because the CRAFT acronym just asks teens to, or really anyone when they are looking at information, is this item current? Is it relevant? Who authored it? Is it accurate? And what was the purpose of the creation of whatever article or post or what have you is related to that information. So the teams there, they held focus groups at their school to evaluate and refine their lesson plans and sort of toolkit that they created to help teens become more media literate, and also so that teens could teach other teens that. And they did that through doing research guided by their local teen services librarian first, and exploring the topic. They had guest speakers, and then they decided on doing this sort of toolkit and presentation. Another project that was done was called Community by Design. Teen council members, as well as students from 4 local area high schools surrounding the Pacoima Branch Library, focused their project on increasing community self-expression and cultural pride. To prepare, the teens visited, most for the very first time, in addition to doing their research with the librarian, they visited 24 local museums, galleries, and cultural institutions that featured the Pacific Standard Time Latino Art in LA exhibits, where they explored how artists express individual and collective identity through visual storytelling. Participants working with local artists designed and painted a public mural that celebrates and depicts the cultures and people of Pacoima. And another one of our Cycle 1 projects is called Readers to Leaders. And that was from the Woodland Hills Branch Library. This project focused on empowering teens to think more critically about the role of women in politics and public service. Woodland Hills teens worked with local nonprofits to learn more about civics, voting, and elections, ran 2 voter registration drives, and created and curated an art exhibit focusing on those topics to be displayed at the Canoga Park Art Center. So all of these teens, they decided which issue that they wanted to explore more. So that's where the choice came in, and then also decided what they wanted to sort of do about it in terms of the implementation piece of it. And how we did that is we really did a lot of training with our teen services librarians in terms of developing different sort of guidelines and protocols to help them also gain project management skills, as well as how to spark those conversations in a more natural way, so that like we're not sort of asking the teens bluntly like, oh, how would you like to change the world today? Because that sort of thing doesn't necessarily spark a lot of positive conversation when you just ask cold like that. So yeah, like we did a lot of work with in terms of helping our teen services librarians like suggest icebreakers, or even just like setting it up so like, and inviting the teen services librarians to just leave the room actually for like 20 minutes, and just giving the teens like a deadline. Okay, I'm gonna leave in like for 20 minutes, and I want y'all to try and think about, issues in the community that you would be interested in exploring, and really putting it on them to have that conversation, and then come back and then see what they came up with and sort of narrow it down from there. Other things that we did is we had guest speakers come in from local nonprofits, as well as Skyped in folks from the Queens Public Library, and really had an in-service to talk about how those nonprofits who work with students in civic engagement, how they do that with the students that they work with. So we definitely were interested in copying what we could, if possible, as well as developing our own ways of hosting those conversations and those discussions.
Thank you so much, Candace. And we may have a little bit of time left. Other people may have questions for you. I'm going to hand it back to Catherine.
Yeah, and I want to say just really practically first, I forgot to say early on that all the links we're talking about, we hope you weren't frantically trying to find them on the web. We have a resource widget, and you can download everything, right, Tracy? Okay. I hope you see it. I don't see it, but apparently there's a widget that lets you.
It's green icon across the bottom of your screen.
Green icon across the bottom of your screen. Okay. So this is what we want to. We have 8 minutes left, and I I don't know which way to go with this. We do really want to hear from you guys. If you already have summer reading themes or books, we love being in contact with librarians, and it hasn't really happened so formally before. We'd love to help develop collections, help you think through how the times can match to what you're already doing. I don't know that we have time to get into that, but you're going to have our email addresses, and we'd love to hear from you, and maybe we can kind of take the conversation from there. But instead, maybe we should go to questions. What do you think?
We can kind of do both at the same time. So I would say that if anybody wants to add into the group chat, you can there are themes that you are using this summer, you can put it into the chat. But also now's the time, if anybody has questions about our summer reading contest, about what Candace was describing in Los Angeles, about how Karen is using the program in her school, now's a great time. You can either use the chat box or you can use the Q&A widget. We have a few minutes left, so I would love to make sure that we have a little bit of time for that. If you have technical questions or other questions, that would be helpful.
So Audrey O asked if there are features more geared towards middle schoolers. The nature of our site, because of a federal rule called COPA, means that you can't post on our site unless you're 13. And that's not our rule. That's the same rule as why you can't have a Facebook page till you're that age. So it's not that middle schoolers can't use our resources. We have many that are appropriate. I mean, I would even go so far as to say all of them are probably appropriate. It's just that you can't bring them to participate in the contest. So we're really sorry about that.
I would say to Terry Z's, it would be helpful if the New York Times would create contests for families. So I'm not sure exactly, maybe you could explain in the chat exactly what you mean. I mean, certainly the summer reading contest could be used by families in some way, sure, where students, who are in between ages of 13 and 19 can read the Times with their family, discuss the articles that they're reading at the dinner table, and then choose one to submit each week and participate in the contest that way. So while we can't allow, 45-year-olds to be participating because we're a site for teenagers, parents and families can be involved in the discussion. I know in my family, we get the Saturday and Sunday paper and we talk about it at the breakfast table. We talk about the different articles and we have discussions about it, and that's a lot of fun. And so in that way, I think families can get involved.
Well, but I'd add two things. One, if you are a print Times getter, there is a monthly kids section that is only in print that kids apparently bonkers for, and it's kind of, what would you guys say, 8 to 12 is the sweet push? Yeah,
sure.
I mean, people are crazy for that. And there's also a brand new, the Times has always covered parenting issues, but there's a brand new relaunched parenting section with its own newsletter now. So they are thinking, in collaboration with us, actually, of having weekly discussion questions in there about the news. So and who knows what will happen.
And I'll just say a plug just about families. I mean, we have our student opinion questions every week. And I've really felt like, even though they are our main audiences for classrooms and for students to come on there, that those questions can be used again with families. I mean, there are lots of great discussion starters. We actually have a prompt list of over 1,000 questions. And I think they could be really helpful for parents that want to help engage their students in what's going on in the news.
Is there an overlap between Upfront and us? Not exactly, although they are close colleagues with us. We know them well. We have occasionally collaborated on things, but they're print and they're on a really different cycle than us, as you might imagine, because they're print that comes out, like every 6 weeks, and we're daily. So we're trying to hit the front page news as it happens, and they're kind of taking a longer view. But the Times it does collaborate with, it's a joint project between the Times and Scholastic.
And Terry Z also asked about ELL participation. We actually have, during the year, we have lots of ELL students participating on our site using our picture prompts, which I think are a terrific resource. Our What's Going On in this Picture is perhaps our most popular place where students comment. We frequently get over 1,000 comments in a week, where we put a photograph that appeared in the Times, we strip it of its caption, and we ask students to comment, what do they see going on in this picture, and what do they see that makes them say that? And so it's a terrific way for students to use close observation skills and then practice their language skills to describe what they see going on in the picture. But we also have ELL students at different age levels participating, like I said, in our picture prompt conversations and in our student opinion prompt conversations.
Yeah, as our site does so much, it's probably dumb of us to do so much, actually. So you can, I think we put the how to use this site on that handout that you'll get. But there's all kinds of other things. We only talked about a very small fraction, just really the summer reading contest and our writing prompts. But there's lots of ways to join in, and we hope you guys will.
So just to wrap up, because we're coming to the end, and it seems like we've answered most people's questions. First of all, I want to thank Karen and Candace for participating. So thanks to both of you. And I want to thank to all the audience for staying with us for this hour. You're going to have a chance to provide us with feedback at the end of this webinar. So you can give us some feedback. We use that to help make our future webinars more effective. And I also want to say that if you want to stay on top of what's going on in the Learning Network, perhaps the best way is to sign up for our free weekly newsletter. You'll find that link in the resource list that you can download. But what happens is each week during the school year, you'll get a newsletter from us. It's completely free, and it includes all of our resources that we publish that week, our student opinion questions, our lesson plans, our what's going on in these pictures, our weekly news quiz. So that's really helpful. We also use that to announce our future webinars, so you can be sure not to miss any future webinars. So with that, I'll say thank you to all of the teachers out there, to all the librarians out there, to the California State Library. It's been a pleasure, and we hope you found this webinar enjoyable and informative and useful for your purposes. So thank you very much.
One quick thing to add on, a couple of you are asking about the on-demand link, and you will receive that via email within the next 24 hours once it's available.
And so share it with your colleagues if you found this helpful. Again, thank you, and have a good afternoon and a good evening.
Yeah, night everybody. Bye.